British tank crews in World War II had a nickname for their own armor: Ronson lighters. Why? Because they lit on the first strike. But here's the truth most documentaries skip. Britain didn't just build bad tanks. They built tanks for a doctrine that stopped working the moment war began. While Germany built Panzers and America built Shermans, Britain built two completely different tank types: slow infantry tanks to crawl with soldiers, and fast cruiser tanks to break through enemy lines. One doctrine, two tank armies, and by 1944, the entire system was collapsing under the weight of battlefield reality. This documentary covers every major British tank that actually fought from North African deserts to Norman hedgerows. Not the prototypes. Not the cancelled experiments. The Churchills, Valentines, Cromwells, and Crusaders that British crews lived and died in, and the doctrine that forced them to fight with one hand tied behind their backs. Let's see how Britain's armored force evolved. Or didn't. Matilda II. The tank, Infantry, Mark II, universally known as the Matilda II, was the cornerstone of British infantry tank force in the early years of World War II. Heavily armored for its day and armed with the Ordnance QF 2-pounder gun, it could shrug off most German anti-tank weapons encountered in 1940–42. Introduced just before the war, the Matilda II first saw action with the British Expeditionary Force in France in 1940. It gained lasting fame in the North African campaign, where its armor and reliability helped blunt Axis advances through the Western Desert. Despite being slow and eventually outclassed by late-war German tanks, the Matilda II's early successes underscored the value of heavy armor in infantry support. Valentine. The tank, Infantry, Mark III Valentine, was a lighter infantry support tank that entered production in 1940 and was produced in greater numbers than any other British tank type. With over 8,000 built in British and Canadian factories, the Valentine served widely from North Africa to the Italian front. Valentine's armor was respectable by 1940 standards, and its horseman suspension gave it acceptable cross-country mobility. As the war progressed, later Marks were equipped with more powerful guns to address growing battlefield threats. The Valentine's reliability and sheer production volume made it a backbone of British armored units until more advanced designs became available. Churchill. Officially designated Tank, Infantry, Mark IV, and later Marks, the Churchill would become one of the most adaptable and distinctive British tanks of World War II. Known for its heavy armor, long chassis, and ability to negotiate difficult terrain, the Churchill was slow but incredibly tough. Introduced in 1941, the Churchill initially struggled due to developmental teething problems, most famously at Dieppe. However, its resilience became evident in the Tunisia campaign and later in Normandy. The Churchill chassis proved so adaptable that it formed the basis for a remarkable variety of specialist vehicles, from flamethrower variants to bridge layers. Crusader. The Crusader, or tank, cruiser, Mark VI, was one of the principal British cruiser tanks during the early desert campaigns. Designed for speed and exploitation rather than heavy armor, Crusaders were relatively light and fast compared to infantry tanks. Entering service in 1941, the Crusader fought extensively in North Africa. While its mechanical reliability and armor were sometimes criticized, it provided British armored forces with a mobile platform capable of maneuver warfare, a key requirement in the wide-open battles against Axis forces. Its chassis also served in a range of support variants. Cromwell. The cruiser Mark VIII Cromwell was the first British cruiser tank to combine high speed, improved armor protection, and a more potent main gun in a balanced package. Introduced in 1943, it incorporated a powerful Rolls-Royce Meteor engine derived from aircraft designs, offering superior mobility. Cromwell served with distinction through the latter stages of the war, including the Normandy campaign and operations across Northwest Europe. Their performance helped shift British armor towards more versatile medium tank concepts rather than rigid cruiser or infantry categories. Comet. The Comet tank represented the culmination of British cruiser, medium tank development in World War II. Entering service late in 1944, it was armed with a high-velocity 77mm gun and combined mobility with adequate protection, addressing many shortcomings of earlier cruiser designs. Comet units participated in the final push across Western Europe, where the tank's improved firepower and maneuverability made it an effective adversary even against late-war German armor. Though arriving late, the Comet set the stage for Britain's post-war tank thinking, Sherman Firefly. The British Firefly was not an indigenous design but a crucial adaptation of the ubiquitous American M4 Sherman. Fitted with the powerful British QF 17-pounder anti-tank gun, the Firefly provided Allied armored units with a tank capable of reliably defeating the heaviest German tanks encountered in Europe. First deployed in 1944, the Firefly saw extensive service from Normandy through to the end of the war. British crews prized its firepower, and it became the standard British tank killer mounted on Sherman chassis. Its integration represents a critical example of Allied design cooperation. Mk7 Tetrarch. The Mark 7 Tetrarch light tank was produced in limited numbers beginning before the war and saw action in specialized roles. Though not a frontline battle tank in significant numbers, its light weight made it one of the few tanks suitable for airborne operations, including use with British and Commonwealth airborne forces. The Tetrarch's battlefield impact was limited by its light armor and armament, but its unique role in airborne tank deployments makes it a noteworthy part of British armored history. Its use in specific operations underscores the experimental nature of some early war British armored concepts. Covenanter. The Cruiser Mark V Covenanter was an early British cruiser tank designed at the outbreak of the war, intended to provide speed and mobility for armored formations. Although produced in significant numbers from 1940 onward, serious cooling and reliability problems limited its suitability for frontline combat. As a result, the Covenanter was largely confined to training and home defense roles within the United Kingdom. Despite its limited combat use, it played an important transitional role by helping British industry gain experience in rapid wartime tank production. Cavalier. The cruiser Mark 7 Cavalier was developed as an interim solution to improve upon earlier cruiser tank designs while more advanced models were still under development. Entering limited service in 1942, it featured improved armor over earlier cruisers but was hampered by an underpowered engine. Because of these shortcomings, the Cavalier saw only brief operational use and was quickly relegated to secondary roles. Its short service life highlights the rapid pace of British tank development during the middle years of the war. Centaur. The Centaur, closely related to the Cromwell, was produced using the same basic hull design but fitted with a less powerful engine due to shortages of the Rolls-Royce Meteor. This made the Centaur slower than its Cromwell counterpart, though otherwise similar in appearance and layout. Centaur tanks were used primarily for training and support roles, but some saw combat during the Normandy landings, particularly in close support configurations. The Centaur illustrates how British tank production adapted to industrial constraints while maintaining design continuity. M3 Grant. Known in British service as the Grant, the American-built M3 medium tank became a crucial stopgap solution during the critical years of 1941 and 1942. Its distinctive layout, with a 75mm gun mounted in the hull and a smaller turret-mounted gun, gave British forces much-needed firepower in North Africa. The Grant played a decisive role during battles such as Gazala and El Alamein, where it provided a qualitative improvement over earlier British designs. Though soon superseded by the Sherman, the Grant marked Britain's first effective medium tank experience of the war and reinforced the importance of Allied cooperation in armored warfare. The British tank force of the Second World War was shaped by doctrine, necessity, and the brutal lessons of combat. From the slow, heavily armored infantry tanks like the Matilda II and Valentine to the mobile cruiser and medium designs such as the Crusader and Cromwell, each model reflects a phase in Britain's armored evolution. By war's end, tanks like the Comet and specialist adaptations like the Sherman Firefly demonstrated how British tank design had matured, blending firepower, mobility, and adaptability to meet the demands of modern mechanized warfare. These tanks did not operate in isolation. They were part of combined arms teams that included infantry, artillery, and air support, highlighting the integrated nature of Allied operations. British armored forces made profound contributions on multiple fronts, from the deserts of North Africa to the fields of Normandy and beyond. Their tanks, in all their variety, tell a story of innovation under pressure and the relentless drive to adapt in the face of a global conflict.